In this video, we're going to build a groove from scratch, deliberately avoiding quantize, just to see what happens when we add a kind of shared feel from one track to another across a number of tracks. I've taken the slightly unusual step of setting up a number of sounds, and as you can see in the track headers, rather than actually naming the instruments, I've named the keys that I found interesting, just going through and putting a little sort of template of sounds together. So as we go through and add new tracks, those are the keys that I'm going to be focusing on, just having found a couple of sort of nuggets for a number of separate instruments. So this first track's the only one with a sort of real name, or at least as far as the drums components are going to be concerned, and this is where we're going to build our kind of core groove. I've selected a tempo of 62 beats per minute, which is slow. And I found a battery kit which contains three sounds I really like. There's a kick drum here, and a snare here, and this kind of weird sort of tambourine-y noise here. It's got this slightly chainy quality, which I quite like. So what I'm going to start by doing is recording a beat, and what we're going to do is choose to see what happens, just go simply with a metronome and then start to build up a groove over a number of tracks. Let's give that a go now. Now, I've deliberately gone for this kind of slightly swung triplety sort of feel in the kick drum towards the end. So rather than the sort of more hip-hop 16th note there, we've just got something which is nearer a sort of 12th note or a triplet quaver. So let's just have a look at how this falls within here. I'm not going to quantize it. The temptation to reach for quantize is going to be sort of overwhelming, but I am going to slightly cheat because I can see that I've played this first note a little bit early. So I'm just going to select it and make sure that it doesn't start before the beat. Nothing kind of kills a groove by sort of missing out notes by going back to the beginning to discover that your first note actually occurs before bar one, because from a MIDI trigger point of view it just won't play. Otherwise, if we have a look through and see where we kind of are, you'll see that basically these sort of tambourine notes, if we come back to 16th resolution, are sort of happening on sort of quaver beats, more or less. They're a little bit late, but that's okay. I quite like that feel. And then the snare is just where I've kind of put it. And it's here with these kick drums that we've got this slightly sort of more 12th note feel in the kick drum. Okay, let's put a loop around that and just see how it feels. Okay, that's good. I like that a lot. So let's just see how we go. I have a feeling these two kicks are going to just feel a little bit too late, but let's just have a listen when we start adding some more instruments. So I'm going to have to remind myself I've earmarked F#1, which is this key. Okay, and this sound here on D#2. Okay, quite a sort of vinyl-y clap. So I think what I had in mind here was that maybe what we might do is build into this clap, having sort of had this sound lead into the beat before it, so a kind of that kind of a feel. Okay, let's go into beats 2 and 4 with that. Okay, I really like that. There's two sounds happening nicely. I'm only using this reverse sound at the beginning of each pair, as you can see, and then the clap plays by itself on beat 4. Okay, that's sounding quite good. And it's worth noting at this point that obviously the way that I've played these backbeats is that I'm obviously using the rhythm of the snare drum here in this clap sound as well, but by not quantizing them, each time that sound plays, rather than them both playing at exactly the same time, we get this kind of smeariness, which I quite like. Let's see what's happening next. D#3, apparently. Another snare, a slightly more solid one this time. Okay, let's put this sound in by itself. Okay, again, good. Now we've got a little bit more weight on that backbeat again. And actually, my timing's pretty good there in terms of looking at it against the grid and having just sort of analysed the sort of performances in the other two tracks. What that's quite nice for, I guess, is that that's really weighting beats 2 and 4, whereas the other ones are just a little bit more smeared. Okay, let's see what's happening on A2 in this sound. That's this sound here. Okay, so I've got this kind of interesting vinily, quite hissy sort of sound. And I'm sort of thinking, actually don't know what that pitch is yet. I'm going to have to find that in a little while. But anyway, it might be quite nice to sort of kick off each bar of the groove with this sound. Let's just put that in just to add a little bit of pitch. Okay, again, you can see on the cycle repeat, this one's not playing, so I'm going to have to cheat here slightly as well and just make sure that this one comes just the right side of that bar line. Okay, so I've got a little bit of pitch here, and actually even before I try and identify what note that is, what I'm actually going to do is to duplicate this track, because I've had an idea for what we could do with a sound like this. This is from a battery kit. What I'm going to do is, by duplicating it, I'm just going to bring it down to here as well, and then what we're going to do in this duplicate is to move these back to beat 4. So they're basically playing just before the next chord takes over. And then I'm going to go and find whatever that note is. Let's just solo that sound for a second and just see which of these pads is lighting up. This one here. Okay, so in this duplicate, what I'm actually going to do is to change the tuning. Let's just take that up one semitone so that we get this little interesting relationship between these two little chords. Okay, I like that. Let's have a listen to that with the groove. That's nice. Okay, let's see if we can find this note. So this note here, let's come to this bass sound. I think it's an A sharp. Let's have a listen to those two together. It would help if I triggered the right instrument. Yeah, sure enough, an A sharp or a B flat. So if that one's a B flat, then this, of course, is now going to be a B. And unless my ears deceive me, this is kind of a major chord that's being triggered from this little sample within battery. So if we've got this here in this bass, we're going to have this note on beat 4. Okay, well, let's see if we can build a bass line around those two notes. Okay, I bet I've played that first note early. Oh no, it's actually the right side of the bar line. Okay, so you can see what I've done here is to play this bass line. Let's just have a listen back to it by itself. So each time I hit beat 4, I'm making sure that I'm playing a B to match that new chord, that duplicate chord, and otherwise we're staying in kind of B flat territory. It's nice and angular. Let's have a listen to that with everything. Okay, that's coming together quite nicely. And then I've got a Rhodes sound here as well. And now that I've found my key, we can play these two chords. Let's just reinforce them with some electric piano. Actually, you know what's better when I come off on beat 2 like I did the second time. You can see this first one that I've played is too long. Let's just erase that and do that again. So we've managed to pick up a stuck note there, but that's easily fixed. Okay, it's just been captured as a little bit of MIDI there, like that. Okay, let's have a listen through from the beginning. Okay, so it's interesting. Right at the very beginning, we recorded the chord groove, and I wondered whether or not that kick drum here, halfway through beat 3, was going to bother me, and it does a little bit. It's just a little bit too late, so I am going to slightly cheat and pull that one in time. But of course, the object here isn't just to ignore quantize for the sake of ignoring quantize, but it's to just begin to explore what happens when you sort of say, okay, you know what, I'm not going to make decisions about quantize until much further into the process. Often, when we are beat programming, the temptation is just to bang any old rhythm in, knowing that quantize is available to us, ready to fix any timing errors. And as a result, there's no real emphasis on going through the process we've just gone through here, which is to see what happens when you build something completely from scratch without any timing correction. And what you actually get is a much better sense of how your timing feels over a number of tracks when you've added a number of musical elements. So actually, this approach to building beats is really fun and will teach you quite a lot about your own sense of timing and groove and feel.